Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Angela Poe Russell, and I will be your moderator for this webinar brought to you by Opticyte, Changing the Pulse, How Innovation Can Close the Health Equity Gap. There's this condition that honestly doesn't get a lot of public attention. I'm still learning about it, but it is a leading cause of death in U.S. hospitals, surpassing opioid overdoses, prostate cancer, and breast cancer combined. Think about this. We're talking about sepsis. It's a complication from an infection. And right now, medical providers, they have this blind spot when they're trying to treat it. The bottom line is that the technology that we have available now is simply failing people of color. The issue is something called a pulse oximeter. Dr. Lori, did I say it right?
You did.
Yeah, okay, the device. It's decades old and it misdiagnoses Black patients nearly 3 times more often than white patients, falsely indicating normal blood oxygen levels when they may actually be dangerously low. Fortunately, there is hope, and that's why we're here today. Opticyte is on a mission to solve this problem, and it has promising technology that we are so excited to tell you about. It is called the VitalO₂. And with us today is the visionary behind Opticyte, Dr. Lori Arakaki. She is a pioneering bioengineer who blends deep expertise with a commitment to improving lives, and in this case, saving them. Also joining us is Opticyte investor and community advocate, Doug Baldwin. He's the founder and CEO of Vault89. So thank you both for all you do in the community and for being with us today.
Of course, Ms. Russell. Let's get this party started.
All right, let's do it.
We're pleased to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this, and I want to make sure we share this with as many people as possible. So, Lori, for those of us who aren't experts in healthcare, what is the pulse oximeter?
Okay. Most people are familiar with this. It's the device they put on your fingertip in doctors' offices and certainly in hospitals. And pulse oximeters measure the amount of oxygenation in blood. The reason why doctors want to know what a pulse oximeter reads is because it's an indication of how much oxygen supply there is to the body in the blood. And that's really useful to know. It's a really simple device. It measures only 2 wavelengths. And it's been known in the last about 5 years that there's a big problem with today's pulse oximeters. The fact that it's so simple of a technology means that it's not able to accurately measure blood oxygenation in people with dark skin.
And why is that? Like with what you, so many people think, how would skin color impact those kind of readings?
Exactly. So the 2 wavelengths of light that are measured are sensitive to how much oxygen is in the blood. And that's what the whole thing is all about. That's what they're supposed to be measuring, which they do. But when there's melanin in the skin, the light still has to travel through a person's finger that has melanin in it. And melanin itself affects the measurement of light. It absorbs light itself. And so now the pulse oximeter can't tell the difference really well between what are the changes the device is measuring from that come from blood or that come from melanin. It can't separate that. And so, as you said earlier, Angela, the problem is that today's pulse oximeters measure blood oxygenation too high in people with dark skin. So patients like with dark skin get misdiagnosed as being healthier than they are. This problem was unmasked during the COVID pandemic. I think all of us remember in early COVID, Black people were dying at twice the rate of white people. And that caused people to, try to find out, why is that? And it turns out that this racial bias that is inherently built into today's pulse oximeters was one of the main causes. So people were misdiagnosed as healthier than they were. And in those really crowded emergency rooms at the beginning, they were trying to quickly decide who needs to go in and get admitted and treated and who doesn't. And so delayed treatment led to a significantly higher mortality rate in these Black patients that were doing that. So, so Opticyte is going to fix this this device, Opsites is going to fix
VitalO₂,
this
yeah.
problem that's in a medical device that's used every day in all hospitals.
Got it. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. First, Doug, I want to bring you into the conversation. First, I just want to call out to everyone. Like, I had no idea how huge of a problem sepsis is. And when I looked into the data, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Lori, but it's more than 350,000 people die every year in hospitals due to sepsis. So, Doug, what led you into this journey? I heard it may have been like personal to you.
Yeah, I mean, the truth, Angela, is that at the beginning of this process of working with Lori and understanding Opticyte and the technology behind it, I didn't necessarily have much of insight of my family's previous medical history until this brought up some of those conversations. So, I mean, yes, it is personal to me on a number of levels. One, I've had friends and family members who have passed away from COVID. Um, so you can imagine during that time, just all of the things that were going on in our communities and with our families, right? So then understanding that component of it, but then as I'm, digging in with Lori and learning more about the technology, then I go back and I'm thinking like my grandfather had some issues. And so I was talking to my mom about that. And yeah, there were several times where he was admitted to the emergency room. They didn't really know what was going on with him because, again, they were getting inaccurate readings. He was sent home, but then he had to come right back because he was having similar or, worsening circumstances. And so I'm realizing now that there's a lot of unknown still with my family and family members that have gone through experiences dealing with sepsis and sepsis related issues, but they didn't know about it.
Right.
Right. And so I'm just wondering, obviously from a personal standpoint, but then when I zoom out and I think about this in totality, I wonder how many folks, how many family members, how many individuals have gone through and experienced something regarding sepsis or the lack of oxygen in their blood and just didn't know about it because they're getting inaccurate readings. And we know that this is the case because the data is coming out showing the inaccuracies of the readings. So yes, it's personal for me on a number of levels. And that's why this is so important to me, because not only could it have potentially saved lives of my family members and friends, but also a whole host of folks in our country and in this world. So yes, this is a very important initiative for us at Vault 89, but also personally for me.
Yeah. I mean, you raise some serious questions, because if we know that physicians may not have all the data and they're not able to detect when something's wrong, it does leave a family member like yourself questioning, like, would things have been different, had we had this technology? And so one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Doug, I can imagine at Vault 89, you get a lot of people coming telling you about something they've created, or something they'd like to bring you into, learning about. What caught your attention? What is it about Lori in particular that you were like, you know what, it's this innovation and this researcher that you were like, we need to do something and make this happen?
Yeah, it's ironic because I consistently get feedback from folks in the venture capital space about, really trying to redefine our investment thesis. A little shameless self-promotion here. So our first official investment was in Boon Boona Coffee. And anybody in the Seattle region, right, Pacific Northwest, about Boon Boona Coffee. I don't drink coffee, right? So ironically, right, traditional thesis would tell you you're supposed to invest in the product or the service that you consume or use, but that's just not how we operate. Really, what it comes down to is we invest in the human being. So Ephraim Fasaha, who is the owner of Boon Boona Coffee, an incredible human being that's trying to bring access to revenue streams for Eritrean and Ethiopian coffee bean farmers, right? So when we look at investments, we really look at the people behind it and the value that they provide just based on their passion and their devotion to the mission that they're trying to pursue. And Lori's uniqueness in that regard stood out to us the very first meeting that we had with her. Quite honestly, and Lori will tell you this, we asked pretty candid questions, pretty, you know, human level questions. And when I was able to pull that out of Lori and I saw her passion, um, and Lori, forgive me the honesty here, but her emotion around this topic and what it meant to her and why she was pursuing it, it just made a ton of sense to us. On top of the fact that it is a mission that is worthy of pursuit and could, genuinely revolutionize the medical field if we have better data to serve patients. And so on top of the fact that it's a great product and it's a mission that's worth pursuing, Lori is the right person with the right passion and the right skill set to go and make this mission happen. So it was an easy yes for us.
Well said. Thank you so much for that. Okay, Lori, so let's talk about this innovation, the VitalO₂. How does it work differently than what we have now?
Right. So the technology is optical spectroscopy. We measure over 800 wavelengths, and we make this measurement non-invasively from the palm of the hand. That is in stark contrast to today's pulse oximeters, which measure 2 wavelengths. So with our rich data set that we collect, we use a form of AI known as machine learning in order to give 2 accurate measurements. Pulse oximetry that we've been talking about, and in addition to that, it's cellular oxygenation, which we call VitalO₂, just that's its nickname. So with these 2 measurements, both of them are skin tone agnostic, because in both cases, we have trained these algorithms on data from people with a wide range of skin color and different other characteristics such as body mass index, age, and sex. So that's why our measurements are accurate for what we're trying to measure, but they kind of ignore the variation in physical characteristics from the patient.
Okay, and what will this look like? Like we've talked about, like, will it still go on the thumb, or you said palm of your hand? What will it look like?
Yeah, so this is our disposable. We're gonna take these white things off so that it's sticky, and then it sticks to the person's palm like this. And then what snaps into this is a fiber optic cable that goes to the monitor that's at the bedside. And then on the monitor, of course, is the real-time display of the data that the doctors need.
Okay, so color agnostic, and it sounds like more than one way to look at those oxygen levels.
Right. And so when the doctors have both of our measurements, our VitalO₂ and the pulse ox measurement at the same time on the screen, those 2 measurements together will give doctors the full picture of oxygenation. What pulse ox is going to tell them is how much oxygen supply there is. And what VitalO₂ tells them is how much oxygen is being delivered to the cells of vital organs. And this is the missing piece that doctors don't have right now. Right now, they have, what can they look at? They have vital signs. Those are, blood pressure, body temperature, heart rate. These vital signs are not enough information for them to know the true, status of their patients. And that's why sepsis is such a big problem. It's very hard to recognize sepsis early, given what they have now. And so a lot of things happen, treatment is delayed. Sometimes these patients that actually do have sepsis get sent home because it's not recognized. And then 2 days later, they're back in the hospital with the same sepsis course, but they suffered that at home, but now they're back and they're really sick. So early recognition of sepsis is something that the clinical world is hungering for, and we feel like we can provide it. Not only are we going to help to recognize sepsis earlier, but continuous monitoring is going to help doctors be able to, in real time, make effective treatment decisions to give patients what they need and when they need it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, whether it's sepsis or any other reason like trauma or cardiac failure or respiratory failure or COVID, in the end point is doctors can help to reduce organ failure when they have the information that the VitalO₂ will give.
Yeah. And as a researcher, I mean, you know the value of studies. Tell us about what studies have taken place so far and what you've learned from those.
Yeah, our very first in human study was done up here in Seattle. We studied 147 patients that were admitted to the emergency department. We had a cohort of people that had sepsis and two control cohorts who did not. And so the ultimate goodness of that data set is it showed that people with sepsis had significantly lower SELO2 than people that did not have sepsis. And so that is a really good indicator of the fact that SELO2 can be effective at triage to help recognize sepsis. We did that study under difficult circumstances. We were unlucky that we did that study right when COVID started. So we fought through the whole COVID protocols that were going on in the hospital, but our research team is amazing, and we got that one done.
Yeah.
We have an ongoing different study on cancer patients that are undergoing chemotherapy. When people have chemotherapy, naturally they become anemic, and that means they have a low red blood cell count. The chemo just kind of kills that. And so, of course, the therapy for anemia is red blood cell transfusion. And so these patients get transfused all the time. There's risk and cost to transfusions. And so we're finding that SELO2 can help the doctors make better transfusion decisions. If they have anemia, but do they actually need a transfusion? Well, if SELO2 is high, even if they are anemic, they don't need a transfusion right then.
Got it.
And then we have a really interesting ongoing study of cardiac surgery patients. When patients are on bypass for hours, when their chest is unfortunately open to have the surgical procedure, some of these patients come out of that with really difficult recoveries. And it's known already now that they're suffering, moderate and sometimes severe organ dysfunction in that period of time. And the data that we have indicates that SELO2 can help the doctors, you know, optimally treat patients during recovery from surgery to help them recover faster and not have such bad consequences.
Yeah, it sounds like there's so many possibilities for this, like so many
Yeah.
different areas where you can make an impact. I want to talk about this from an investment perspective for a moment, and Doug, I'll go to you, come to you in just a minute. When we think of investing in medical devices, you usually think of large VC firms writing these huge checks, seven, eight figures. And I heard that it was really important to you that you wanted to democratize the ability for people to invest. And you started this crowdfunding campaign on Start Engine. Why was that so important to you to make that part of your process?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Um, Most people's lives actually have been touched by sepsis. A lot of people have, just like Doug, have a friend or a relative who had sepsis, and unfortunately, some of their loved ones have died from it. And I hear stories a lot too that people that they know that this happened to, they die quite suddenly and unexpectedly because sepsis can act really quickly. Um, so we wanted to provide an opportunity for everyone to be a part of what we're building. So on our Start Engine campaign, the minimum investment amount is $300, and you don't have to be an accredited investor to join in. And so, providing high quality healthcare for everyone is what drives me. And it just means a lot to me to have a investor and supporter base
Mhm.
for everybody that looks like the people that we want to serve.
Yeah, and wants to be able to tangibly make a difference. And it's been really successful so far. I want to say that at last count, it was over $250,000, which is incredible. So that is awesome. All that happening on Start Engine. Doug, you heard Dr. Lori. Is it okay to call you Dr. Lori? Dr. Arakaki.
Hey,
Um,
Lori.
you heard her talk about just all the possibilities with the VitalO₂ and the potential for being in every hospital around the world. So we know about the economic potential of this as an investor, but what do you hope the human impact of this will be?
That's a great question. I think there's multiple ways to look at this, right? I think as Dr. Arakaki explained, there's a huge cost to our medical system for sepsis patients who come in and are not properly diagnosed, accurately diagnosed, right? So if you look at it just from the economic standpoint of, the landscape of the medical industry, there's a lot of cost savings that can happen here that then can point other resources directed towards better serving patients in other areas of the medical industry. So that's one component of it, right? The second component of it, and more so to your point about the human part of this, it's just about caring about folks that didn't necessarily get the perspective or their perspective injected into the process of this device being made in the first place. And so having a seat at the table, if you will, right, is incredibly valuable, not only for this particular situation in technology, but for all of the medical field. If we can reveal that, hey, there are some blind spots within our technology, and show it in a very clear, concise, and direct way, what happens to the rest of the medical field? Maybe we can galvanize community members and staff within the medical industry to then think about things from a different perspective that they hadn't before. And so maybe this becomes a snowball effect to then change our medical industry as a whole for the betterment of our communities. And so it's multi-pronged here, but really at the end of the day, and how we articulated it as a team, is that this initiative really demonstrates love. And if you've heard me speak, the topic of love is very important to me. And it's a lens that we view everything through. And so really what it is, you're showing up and you're showing love and care for another human being on this planet. And if we do that, and we do it the way that Lori is leading, the business part of it will take care of itself. But really what it comes down to is loving the other human being on this planet. You serve them, you care for them, you do something like this that can impact their lives, both from a medical standpoint, health standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint. Maybe some magic can happen.
Yeah. Well, I feel very inspired. We can just go home now after we go to, opticyte.com and invest.
Just invest, everybody.
Yeah. No, I just want to let everyone know that we do have the Q&A open for this webinar. So if you'd like to ask Dr. Arakaki some questions, or if you'd like to ask Doug a question, you can just put in your question into the Q&A part of this webinar. Dr. Lori, one thing I wanted to talk to you about is I read that Opticyte received a breakthrough device designation, and it sounds really cool, but can you tell us what this means in terms of your journey in getting this in the hospitals?
Well, actually, we have two breakthrough device
two?
designations, but I will explain. So, from the investor standpoint, I must say, a lot of people, when looking at a medical device company, find the FDA as, a possible barrier, because clearly all medical devices, including ours, need to get FDA clearance or approval before you can go to market and get it into hospitals or wherever your goal is for sales. And so the breakthrough device designation is something that the FDA grants to breakthrough devices that are have the potential to be much better than what is currently on the market. And the FDA's purpose in giving out the breakthrough device designation is to hasten or quicken the process to get these really truly difference-making technologies into the clinical setting. So we're very happy that in late 2022, we got the BDD for VitalO₂. And then just this past March, we got the BDD for our racially unbiased pulse oximetry technology. These both were given based on data that we, submitted to the FDA. So it really provides our company, just that in itself is great, wonderful validation by the FDA for what we're doing. They believe in it. On the ground operational, plane, the BDD helps to make the relationship between the company and the FDA better. We get, a fast track through the process, a higher priority, and really good, discussions and help from, well, not help, but discussions and support from the FDA panel.
Yeah. And we actually have a question that I think will move us in a similar direction here. Someone put in the Q&A, sometimes investing feels like your individual investment doesn't go very far. Do we know what the funding Opticyte is seeking will be used for and what this funding will unlock for Opticyte?
Yes, our very next critical milestone that we're raising money for now on the Start Engine platform is to execute a very important pivotal clinical study on sepsis. We have this protocol written, we have a PI. This study will be done in Minneapolis already, as with the FDA panel that I just spoke about. We've run the protocol past that panel, and they've, provided feedback on it that we've accepted and going to do. So all I need to do now is raise the money to fund this study, and then we can get going on it. The study is going to be critical for Opticyte's success, because not only is the data set going to be the one that we're going to submit to the FDA to get FDA clearance, but more importantly, I don't know about more importantly, but very importantly, it will be a huge clinical validation of how VitalO₂ can help identify sepsis in its earliest stages, which is really what is not there now that we're going to provide.
Yeah. So you have this study, the groundwork for it is already in place, just
Right.
needing the financing. And behind you, you've got the FDA breakthrough designation, you have the previous studies, and we've been able to clearly identify that this current technology falls short. You just personally, when you told me how the VitalO₂ works, it made me think about, the mammograms I get every year and just how much they've evolved and how we used to be able to just get this image and now we can get the 3D image and we have all kinds of ways. And it just sounds like from what you've been able to communicate with us today, this VitalO₂ really gives us another data point, and that is going to be more accurate and it's going to make a difference. And that's exciting.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we've talked about how people can support you related to the study. Dr. Lori, could you share other ways that people can support? Like, how can they jump in right now and be part of this?
Okay, so really, as I just said, we really need to raise a few $100,000 to support the study. So any Start Engine campaign investments that come through, we will appreciate that and apply that forward. If people would like to reach out to me to ask questions, I just want to say the best way to contact me is through our website, which is www.opticyte.com. Just go in there to the Contact Us page, write me a note, and then I can get back to you and answer some questions for you if you have them. But really, I just appreciate everyone's time here, spending with us and learning about what we're doing. And yeah.
Yeah. All right. And one other question, and you may have already answered, but let's just make sure. Have you met your fundraising goal needed to complete this pivotal study? Where
Not
are
yet.
you at? Yeah.
We need to raise, a couple 100,000 more than what we've done.
Got it. Thank you for that question. Doug, anything else you want people to know? And I'll ask that to both of you, but Doug, I'll start with you.
Well, I would reiterate just the gratitude for everybody joining us today. And I want to go back to your previous, or to the question that was in the Q&A about, your individual investment and, feeling does it go far enough? And look, I know most of the people who have heard my name know it from my previous career. And the truth is, I've been playing team sports since I was 6 years old. And so I'd like to think I'm well versed at team sports. And I take this no differently. And for the individual donors, recognizing that if you're joining our team, your role on this team is no greater, no smaller than anybody else on our team. Everybody has a role to play. In order for you to win a Super Bowl, right? Everybody has to take their role seriously. Right. So even if it's just the minimum of $300 to invest in, it's not just about the $300. The $300 will go a long way, but it's also including the fact that you are a advocate for this technology and for this movement, for this initiative. So being able to communicate it and talk to people that you may not even know may have a connection to this, that then roundabout brings something, an additional resource, an additional connection to then make this go forward. So I just, I want to encourage folks to know that their contribution and their support for this goes a long way, and they may even not know how far it can go, because we never know what happens in the future. But to round it out, I will just say that again, this is an initiative and a mission that's worth pursuing. Obviously, having experience with family members dealing with lack of data, lack of accurate data for them to actually be taken care of in the way that they deserve to be taken care of. It matters to me that somebody's pursuing this mission. And I'm going to say something that's probably controversial in the venture capital space, but I just want to make sure that people understand where I'm coming from, both as, a personal investor in this, but also as our organization. Look, at the end of the day, we know when we make investments, the majority of those investments are not going to succeed. That's just the reality of investing. And we know that, and we look at this as like not necessarily a hope for a win at the end of it. We do, but again, there's so many variables that have to happen in order for that to come to fruition. But at the end of the day, this is a mission that's worthy of getting behind. It's a worthy cause. And so even if it doesn't come to the full fruition that we expect it to in the future, it's still a mission worth getting behind. You feel me? And so whether it was, financially or connecting Lori to different supporters or network folks in our network, this is a mission that we had to get behind. And so I just say that so people understand that this is not this is a full holistic view and approach to investing that we take, and that is why Opticyte needs your support and is deserving of your support.
Okay. Well said. Thank you so much. Lori, what about you? Anything else you want to share?
Yes. Doug, I really appreciate your comments and, of course, your support. But I just want to let the investors and potential investors out there that Opticyte has a very good business case. We have a talented board that together we make very good business decisions. We are going to succeed. We are going to return your investment, and it's not going to take very long. The biggest problem we have had is what we've been talking about, which is raising the adequate funding to make the progress. We know what we need to do next. We just need to fund it. And believe me, it's my job full time trying to do that. Okay, so your it's not a contribution, by the way. This is not like crowdfunding like Kickstarter where it's a donation. This is an investment. When you come in to our starting a campaign, you're buying shares in our company. You will be a co-owner with Doug and me in it. And we will we have a very good business case. We're, as we discussed, we are proving the clinical value of it. We believe that hospitals are going to be able to afford bringing VitalO₂ into their hospitals to use. That's generally a large barrier to sales for new medical devices that, hospitals can't afford to bring it in, even when it's good for their patients. And this is what I had a chat with the CEO of the Temple University Health System out in Philadelphia. He says, wow, I really like what you're telling me you're going to be able to do out here in Philadelphia. We have so many Black and brown people in our patient population, but I'm telling you, if it's going to cost me, $10,000 per bed for each monitor, even if it's the right thing to do for my patients, I can't do it. I can't afford it. And so my answer to him and all hospitals is we have a way it'll be a win-win. Opticyte will make money, and we can do it while not requiring hospitals to pay several thousand or $10,000 per monitor per bed. So just as a business, we have a lot of potential. And then the clinical aspect, as we've been talking about in this webinar, is huge.
Yeah, I can just say personally, I know I'm the moderator role, but I can just say personally, as you know, a human who consumes healthcare, I'm really excited about this. And then from a business perspective and, you know, my journalism lens, the fact that you have done these studies, the kind of research that you've done, knowing what exists right now and what the problems with it are, and then seeing your approach to this, I'm very impressed. And I just, I can't imagine a hospital, like they can't afford not to look into this. And so, you know, I'll end with this. One of my favorite quotes, it's from Maya Angelou, and it's, when you know better, you do better. And we know that the current technology is failing people. I love what you said earlier, Doug, about it being about love and caring for others. We know there is evidence that we have better options available. So we would love your help in getting the VitalO₂ in hospitals and providers' hands so that we can improve healthcare for people. And as you heard, you don't have to be an accredited investor to get involved. We have a campaign going on Start Engine. It's doing really well, but we really need more so that we can get this next study done. I'm going to ask one of our team members to put up the QR code, because we have a QR code that you can just scan it. It'll take you to where you can invest. There you go. There's the QR
There it
code.
is.
I love that. Invest in the future, because we can do better. Invest in the future. And if QR codes aren't your thing, we hope it is, but if it's not your thing, you can go to opticyte.com and get connected with us there. Meanwhile, we'd love to have you follow us along on this journey. I mean, you've heard of all the exciting things happening so far. We've had the breakthrough designation twice. We got the study coming up if we can get all of this support, the investments in. And so follow us along on the journey on the Start Engine, or you can follow Opticyte on LinkedIn. Dr. Lori Arakaki, thank you so much for all you've doing and all you've been doing. You have no doubt dedicated your career to improving healthcare, and we are so grateful for that. And Doug, we are grateful for all you've done in this community. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Can I do one last fact?
Yes, let's do it.
Yes, it is one last thing. Our Start Engine campaign will close on June 30th. So you have between now and June 30th to take this opportunity to be an investor in Opticyte.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thanks, everyone.